Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Carl Lee, where sports, culture, and community intersect. Join Carl and frequent co-host Hollis Lewis as they dive into engaging conversations with guests from all walks of life. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Let the conversation begin on Let's Talk.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and my co-host is out today. He's ripping and running around the state trying to do his political duties, I assume. Let's Talk is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. You can visit Frank Walker at FrankWalkerLaw.com. For more information, you can catch Let's Talk every Sunday at 1 p.m., Thursday at 7 p.m. on 580 WCHS. If you want to watch any of our past episodes, you can go to WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. You can also follow us on Facebook at Let's Talk with Carl Lee for any of the updates. My guest today is what I would call the epitome of a football coach. And I coached with him at West Virginia State, when I was there in 96, and he was my first D coordinator. Now, I haven't even said his name yet, but for the most part, I'm going to make the case that anybody from Charleston to maybe Huntington probably will know this guy's name. Coach Earl Monroe played at the University of Miami. He was a linebacker, and he started at West Virginia State in 1987, where he also coached track as well. When I took over as the coach in 1996, I hired Coach Monroe as the D coordinator, and he would go on and become that West Virginia State's head coach. In that tenure, okay, and anybody who knows the history of West Virginia State, when I was there and some of the coaches prior to, we never had an actual winning season. Coach Monroe has been the individual who, to me, in my mind, has been the guy who's turned it around. He had 2 winning seasons, and also I think was ranked at one point in time during the season, nationally ranked as a team, which again speaks to the leadership and speaks to his experience and his ability to maintain and establish a coaching a team who's looking for coaching. Coach Monroe, how you been doing, man?
Doing great, Carl. Doing great.
So, Coach, I want to go back because I know you played at the University of Miami, and I can remember when I first met you and you said that. Because when anybody thinks of University of Miami, I mean, you're thinking as big a football, college football as you can get. Tell me a little bit about because I don't know this, which I probably should, but we've probably never gone back, had time to even go back to have a little bit of discussion about where'd you play high school ball? Because everybody knows, when you start talking about Miami, you start talking about places, Atlanta, places that have huge high school programs and send major D1 players. Tell me and tell the audience a little bit about where you went to high school, what was the recruiting process, who was negotiating for your skill set.
I played in Atlanta, Georgia. I played at Atlanta Southwest High School. And it was a small high school, unbelievably a small high school. But
now, is that relative to Atlanta, or would that be? Are you talking about here
in Atlanta? And I graduated in 1974, and in Atlanta there were 25 high schools in the metro area. That's inside of 285.
Right.
So it was a lot of high schools. So they were smaller high schools. They weren't these big conglomerate high schools that they have now. And just so happened, we had so many great athletes descend on that area at that time. We won junior year, we won state championship in basketball. Senior year, we won state championship in basketball and football. We went undefeated, 13-0, and we were ranked the number 2 team in the nation.
Wow.
We had 22 seniors, and 19 of them signed college scholarships. So it was just an amazing time. You can Google, our quarterback was Anthony Flanagan. You can Google him. He was the first African-American quarterback at the University of Georgia.
Wow.
So, we had guys go everywhere, Miami, South Carolina, all over the place.
All right, so you signed at the University of Miami. Like, again, I can't fathom that high of a recruiting process. I wasn't fortunate enough to be in that side of it. So what made you decide for the University of Miami versus anybody else that was out there? Who was the other place that you was considering going?
And I'm grinning now because my brother was in town for homecoming this past weekend, and we had some of this conversation. Literally, we were recruited by everybody, and not bragging to say that. We had so many athletes, again, that the schools were coming in to see and try to get whoever they could get out of that high school.
Now, let me clarify. Coach Monroe has a twin brother.
Identical twin brother. Yeah.
Identical twin. I promise you wouldn't know the difference if you were seeing them both.
It was a lot of confusion on campus last weekend.
So he played as well, Coach?
Yes, and he actually went to Miami. We went to Miami together.
Oh, okay.
As a package.
Okay.
And the joke is, I was good enough to earn 2 scholarships to take him with me, and he says that he was good enough to earn 2 scholarships to take me with him. But we had several athletes recruited the year before. We had 2 teammates that signed with Miami the year before, a quarterback and a wide receiver. We had a defensive lineman that went to USC. We had guys go to Alabama. We had guys go everywhere. So the scouts had already been in.
And knew what was coming.
The junior year team was better than the senior year team that won the championship and went 13-0. The junior year team, we gave up 13 points the whole season, and we averaged about 50. But the 2 outside linebackers, myself being one and the other outside linebacker, were in cast for the playoff game, and we're playing the option team, and we lost in the first round of the playoffs our junior year. And so we made a pact our senior year, and we had a great team that junior year. So we made a pact that senior year that we wouldn't even go on recruiting trips. And so we missed out on some recruiting opportunities because we refused to go on recruiting trips during the season because we saw our predecessors, the seniors before us, get distracted a little bit, going all over the country, being recruited. So all of my recruiting trips, unfortunately, for those northern schools were in December and January. So to answer your question of how that process went, I got recruited at Nebraska. They fly me out, me and 3 other teammates. They flew 3 linebackers and a running back from my school. We went to Nebraska. It was 13 degrees. And nothing to do but go milk the cows and whatever. I'm a city boy coming from Atlanta, man, Nebraska. But it was really a great situation. It's a small town. Everybody in the town supports that university. Every storefront's got the N and the red and all that. I received letters from every business in Lincoln, Nebraska. But there's nothing else there, and they support.
So they're tied into it.
Oh, yeah, they're tied in. And, they had indoor facility then. They were big. Well, they had Big 8 championships all over the place and a couple national championships. And that part of it made you lean. It made you lean and think about, envision yourself being there. And then you walk outside, that wind hit you, and you said, I don't know. Now, if I'd gone earlier in the year and it wasn't as bitter cold, they might have got another thought. Well, the next week, my brother and I and two other teammates, they fly us to Pittsburgh. Tony Dorsett was a freshman.
Wow.
Tony Dorsett was a freshman. We go up, we fly to Pittsburgh, we get off the plane. It's a foot of snow. We're leaving Atlanta, man. It's 78 degrees. And again, it was the late.
So you really just needed to go south. Your recruiting trip should have all gone south.
Miami was very lucky that they were the last trip after Pittsburgh, and it was snowing. And I don't know if you're familiar with their facilities at the time. The stadium was up on top of the hill, and the round dormitories were down at the bottom, and we had to foot it. Tony Dorsett, and I think the last guy, the basketball player star was last name Knight or Knighton or something, and they were only two had cars. Identical Cutlass Supreme, so I don't know what was going on there. But we go down to the little party or whatever, and everybody's telling Tony, man, we got recruits, man, and it's a long way. So you're going to give them a ride back? And, Dorsett, he got freshman of the year and all that stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah, we'll give him a ride. We never saw him again. So I got sick, lost my voice, it's cold. I'm looking at the classrooms, and I'm looking at the dorms, and I'm looking at the facility. I'm like, my brother and I said, look, man, I don't think I can do it. I mean, they put a big rush on us. Joe Avezzano, who ended up being the special teams coach of the Dallas Cowboys for years, great guy. He lived at my house. I come home from school, he got his tennis shoes on, talking about, let's shoot some ball. They were really after us, and they made a big push, and we were impressed. Johnny Majors was the head coach, and we were impressed. So we're trying to narrow it down. We go to Indiana. We got recruited by Earl Bruce was the coach at one of them. We went to Iowa State. The guy on game day that just put the head on. Coach, he was coaching at one of them, Indiana. We got snowed in. So, okay, guess what the fifth trip is? The University of Miami. So the University of Miami was the first place that we went that it was warmer than it was where we left Atlanta. And we get down there, man, and we had two teammates there already, and so that was a comfortability. The coach that was recruiting us played at Morris Brown College in Atlanta, and, he was familiar with us, and we were familiar with him. And to be honest, part of it was the weather. I mean, it was bitter. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds to me like almost all of it was the weather.
Well, it was the weather and the pool at the Union when you walk by to go to class and you look over the fence at the pool and and the beach and listen, I'm just turning 17 years old. I graduated a year early, okay? So I'm just turning 17. They take us to the Rusty Pelican. They have the recruiting girls, they call them the Hurricane Honeys. They'd have rent a car, and they come pick you up, and they take you out to this fancy dinner. The Rusty Pelican, Google it. It sets out on the bay, and we're pulling up, and Sylvester Stallone's getting out of a two-seater, whatever kind of car. I have no idea what it is. I'm 17 years old, man. I am literally going crazy. I'm looking for the papers. And the other thing, there was some football-related thought process in there. Miami had the toughest schedule. They were independent. So
I didn't know that.
They were independent for forever. And they had the toughest schedule in the nation for the first 2-3 years. And I was like, man, look, that's where I'm going. They're not winning a whole lot of games right now, but that's where I'm going. I played Nebraska at Nebraska. I played Alabama at Alabama. I played Penn State at Penn State. I played Notre Dame at Notre Dame. I played Ohio State at Ohio State. We played Florida State every year. We played Florida every year. Just tough. Now, we were beat up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could, we got, when we were in some battles, we had really good defenses, and we just could not. We had Nebraska on the ropes. We had, played against Joe Montana, played against Tony Dorsett. I think I'd have to Google it, but I think Nebraska won a national championship during my 4 years. I was recruited by them. Notre Dame won a national championship. I was recruited by them. Pitt won a national championship. And some of my homeboys, they go in the Pitt, and they rub it in on me till this day. But
probably still wearing that ring.
They're wearing it and putting it in my face. So my brother and I was talking this weekend. We said, well, that's all fine and good. We could have maybe gone to one of them places, and we don't know what would have happened and what would have transpired. We might have won a national championship. We might not have. But just think right now, we will be going back to Pittsburgh in November for homecoming. And in 2 weeks, guess where we're going? We're going to Miami to the Florida State game, and it's homecoming. So I think overall the experience, we played a lot of football, made a lot of great friends and teammates. And, again, we get to go to games now. We go to spring ball in April. We go to Miami. We hang out at the beach. We go to 2 or 3 ball games a year. Or I could be going back to Nebraska for homecoming. So it's a lifelong
when you look at it,
look at it that way now.
The overview of it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So that being said, we made a lot. Like I said, didn't win a whole lot of ball games. Was in a lot of close ones, but learned a lot. Had some really good coaches, and you never know what the decision going to be, if you were going to win at Pitt or win at wherever. But overall, it was got great education, and played some good football, learned some good football, and so we think we made the right decision.
All right, so moving on to all of a sudden you get to West Virginia. What actually brings you to West Virginia?
I got hurt my senior year. All the scouts were in, and I got hurt my senior year, and ended up signing free agent. I mean, I was on the draft board, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm gonna get drafted. My roommate, my junior year, Google this guy, Eddie Edwards. He was the 3rd player picked in the 76 draft. He was my roommate. Well, they had the news people coming in to do the story on the draft. They didn't know he was going to go that early.
Right.
And he got picked before they got set up. 3rd player picked, which was the highest player picked in Miami until Sapp or somebody actually went early. So John Turner was my roommate my senior year, who played with you in Minnesota, a good friend of yours.
Yep.
John Turner was picked in the 2nd round, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd player in the 2nd round. I'm thinking I've got a good chance, but I got hurt my senior year. I ended up signing as a free agent with Kansas City Chiefs. And I get out there, and the leg that I had pulled a muscle in my hip working out for some scouts, and it kind of pulled away from the hip. And it took it a long time to heal. But they signed me. I went out to minicamp, and by the time I got to fall camp, it just hadn't got enough strength for them to pass me on a physical. So I actually got a medical release because they put you on that new Cybex technology. That was brand new technology then, and they strapped me into that Cybex machine, and it measures all the muscles in your body, in your leg, and said that my right leg was 22% stronger than my left because of that injury, and so they released me. Well, then some of the scouts and agents and stuff said, well, if you want to get back in the league, you don't want to sit out. You know, you want to kind of be active. Is there something league going on or whatever? You can play organized football. Get your leg checked out. And so they started this AFA, American Football Association. They had a team in Birmingham. And a lot of my buddies were going down to try out. Said, Earl, you going? I said, no, man. My leg felt like somebody shot me in the leg when it happened. I'm going to wait a year. So they go down, they try out. A couple of them make the next tryout. A couple of them make the team. I went to the tryout with them, just standing around. Coaches coming over. Man, you going to work out? I said, no, I'm not. I'm just looking this year. They called Miami, got all the information on me from Miami. They just start bombarding me. Look, you're only an hour away from Birmingham. We'll let you stay at home. You can drive down here 3 days a week to practice, and we need linebackers. So I was like, man, I do want to get back in the league. So I went down. I went down to Birmingham, played, had a really good season, leg held up. That team moved to San Antonio, Texas the next year, and they started a team here, the West Virginia Rockets, in the American Football Association. Perry Moss, who had coached the old Rockets in 69, 70, 71, local guy, he was coming back to coach the team. He was coaching the team in Charlotte. We played against him, a couple of times. I got back to Atlanta. I'm working again. They started calling my phone. 9 or 10 of the players on my Birmingham team signed to come here, and they start calling me. Well, my dad's from Beckley, originally from Beckley, and he went to Morris Brown College in Atlanta and stayed in Atlanta. So my 90-something-year-old grandmother was in Beckley. So they just kept calling, and finally I said, man, I'm going to go up there for a year and give it a try. I said, the only way I'll go, you give me a round-trip ticket. You give me a round-trip plane ticket. That way, if I decide that I want to come back, I got a round trip. I flew in the spring of 80 and played with the Rockets. Man, we had great teams. We had guys from everywhere. We won the championship. I started working as a bridge inspector with the Department of Highways, started moving up. Jim Youngblood, who was the secondary coach for the Rockets, was the safety director for highways. And they were building the turnpike and relocating utilities for the town center and all that. So they were hiring guys and on-the-job training. And I had engineering in my background. I was accepted in the engineering department at Miami. I soon got out of there, but that's where I was accepted. And my dad was the engineer at Lockheed. That's where he worked and retired from. So it fell right in, and I loved the work that I was doing and getting that engineering experience. And so I decided to stay and play the next year. We won the back-to-back championships. So long story short, your roots got deeper, and I kept moving up with the Department of Highways, played about 4 or 5 years there, and then had a 2-year lull. Couple of my buddies, Eddie Ivey being one of them. He was coaching down at West Virginia State and convinced me to come down.
So that's how you got there.
Yes. Eddie Ivey, Buddy White, and Leon Jenkins, they were all coaching there, and they convinced me, said, man, you can help. We need some help. We need some help with linebackers. We need some help on defense. We think you'll do good. So they introduced me to Coach Moore. Coach Moore hired me, and I was there 26 years.
So, all right, good background. All right, so now you become the head coach. My tenure's up. You become the head coach. What do you think that what made you be the guy who could actually get that turn? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not really looking for like a humble kind of answer.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying?
I just will tell you the truth. I'll tell you what it is. I'll not to cut you off. Players. I mean, I could stick my chest out and say, I made this call, that call. This, my offensive coordinator did this, did that. Not that, my guys didn't work hard. I hired 2 guys with local ties as my coordinators. There was a lot of people, wanting to come in and be coordinators, but Kip Shaw, who had played for me years ago at State, probably 89, 90 or whatever, and he had been to Marshall and Southeast Missouri, and he
Good
was
guy.
one of the great guy, and he was one of the candidates, matter of fact, one of the top 2 candidates for the head coaching job. He applied for the head coaching job. And Will King, who's a local guy, who was out of coaching there from Morgan State, and he'd been all around, and they were local, and, he had a kid here that he needed to get back and see, and I was familiar with those guys, and a lot of times that's how that coaching tree works. Right. You want some familiarity. And so neither one of them had coordinated, and I just thought they deserved a shot. And, they came in, and we stayed with the same defense. I gave Will my book, and then he made whatever changes he wanted to. I let Kip run the offense unless it was 4th down and he wanted to go for it, like most offensive coordinators do. And I was like, whoa, this is my offensive hat on. Kick it. But I let him run the offense, and they were organized, they were good workers. But nothing slight of the coaching staff and the assistant guys I had. Players, man, and one the great reasons was Chris Branham, a guy that played for you, played quarterback for us when you were the head coach, recruited out of Florida. He was in this weekend to see me go in the Hall of Fame, just the greatest guy. Just timing, Chris was coaching an all-star game in Florida. And he had a quarterback over there that was just the truth. And he called me, he said, Coach, I got this quarterback, and he ain't going nowhere. He said, I'm telling you right now. He can tear up the league. He can do things for you. I said, Chris, get him on the phone. We'll get him up here. You can talk to him about how we treat people and what this school does and how this school treats people and that kind of thing. So it was the fact the way you and we had treated Chris that he felt comfortable enough
to do that,
to send somebody else back to us. And Coach, that's been our success from the whole time, was guys sending people back. So he sent Kevin O'Brien to us, and 4 years later, Kevin O'Brien had the passing record at West Virginia State University. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it wasn't nothing Coach Shaw called. Coach Shaw didn't throw a single pass. The second year, he sent us a receiver. He called, same conversation. Coach, I got this receiver. He said, I have no idea. We played against him. He's in the All-Star game. I have no idea. Brought him up. Same deal. He signs.
You can't beat those relationships.
No, Coach, no. 4 years later, he's leaving West Virginia State with the receiving record. So, to answer your question, players, they had to believe in State, and we had to get them there. But, we had a good run of players. And then I signed 45 players that first year. And Brian Mitchell, B. Mitch from New Jersey, running back, he ended up getting hurt. People don't know how close we were. Yeah. In 08, we were ranked in the nation. We were 5-0. B. Mitch gets hurt, and then the last year, Kevin breaks his thumb. And so my last 3 years, we went, downhill, and we were not able, with the budgets we had and that kind of thing, we just were not able to sign enough quality. And we had some good players.
Right. We got to take a break, but I want to come back and talk about kind of where the money was, how, when it changed over, what made it the possibilities. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, or even wrongfully arrested. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Find previous episodes of Let's Talk at WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. This is Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. You can visit Frank Walker at frankwalkerlaw.com for more information. All right, so, Coach, you were getting ready to tell me a story about your quarterback and how you got him, I guess, and how that whole process worked to kind of help you get your program turned around.
Right. I told you those two players, Kevin O'Brien and Jermaine King, were sent by a former player of yours or ours from the Florida area. And the third player in that three-headed monster was Brian Mitchell from New Jersey. And it's a crazy story and he was our first, I think he had 900 and something yards, was going to be the first 1,000-yard rusher in a long, long time, and he got hurt. But his girlfriend was being recruited in basketball by, I think, Bluefield State. And so
they wanted to be close.
Yes, and so they were in transit to Bluefield State. He had looked up state. We had talked to him. So they dropped him off at West Virginia State. She and her mother, I believe, they'll go down to Bluefield State. We entertain Brian. She comes back. I take her to the basketball coach. We sign them both. She signed with West Virginia State.
You can't beat that.
And they wanted to be together. They were a couple. They wanted to be together, wanted to be close.
Right.
And he just fell. It just fell in. She decided she was going to state. He came to state. So, again, those relationships of former players were godsend. And, again, I had been there 20-something years.
Right.
19, I think, when you came. And so I had been there, 9 when you came, and then 10 more.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of guys that were coaching in Florida, coaching in Georgia. They were coaching all over the place, and it kind of made it they had the
easier.
confidence in me.
Right.
I had Mike Mayer, who ended up being the conference defensive player of the year. He came from Hemet, California. Now, my recruiting budget can barely get me to St. Albans. So this guy, but he played for Steve Diffie. Steve Diffie, I don't know how Steve got here years ago. And he was a linebacker, looked like Brian Bosworth. And Steve had come here, and he'd gone back home to California and was coaching. And again, it's just how you treat people and you make people feel. He sent his best player, who probably could have gone to any school between here and California,
without any question,
and played any position that he wanted to play.
Yep.
He sent him to West Virginia State because of us. And Mike ended up being, again, everything they said he was.
Yes.
And he ended up being a defensive player of the year. So, again, long story short, to answer your question, I had more contacts as far as players out there coaching.
Right.
And we're recruiting with a very limited budget. So we were recruiting with little budget and relationships.
Well, okay, I'm gonna kind of jump ahead of of that part of it, or maybe more in depth a little bit. I don't know if people understood like what West Virginia State's coaching opportunities were when it came to recruiting. Like I know when I got there, all we had was I think there was 15 what you call tuition waivers, which pays tuition, not your fees, not room and board, not food, none of that kind of stuff. So I know I got a chance to go into, different areas of the school and say, hey, how many beds do you have open? How many meals are you throwing away every day?
Right.
So then all of a sudden, we start to get a chance to have, room and board and tuition. So now the only thing we have is fees. So, and I was fortunate enough to raise a bunch of money. When I left, what was the progress, or was there any progress to add to the opportunities? Because I think what happens when we start talking about schools like West Virginia State, not just HBCUs, but small schools, the challenge isn't, because sometimes you look at a kid and you're saying we're not going to have a chance because we don't have enough money to even. Exactly. It's almost offensive to offer him a tuition waiver. How much of that changed from the time I left and by the time you got to the end of your tenure?
It didn't. Well, it didn't change. I can't say it didn't change much. It didn't change much to the positive. Your efforts got it up to where it was, where we could try to compete, but the other schools were moving on to that maximum 36 full rides.
Right.
So even with your efforts of getting tuition waivers, working with the cafeteria staff and getting some meal waivers and, bed waivers and that kind of thing, I think when they added it up, I think you had about what they call, because they add up everything, you had about 10 or 11 equivalencies.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So those are full ride equivalencies. So after you put all that stuff you went out there and scraped and got, you still only had about 11 equivalencies.
Right.
A full ride equivalency. So we had to break those up and give this guy maybe books and this and try to get some academic. So the academic didn't count in there, but everything else did.
And the problem too is, and this has nothing really to do with the school per se, but just the reality
is what we have.
You have to go out and recruit a kid, and one of the things you're hoping is that they qualify for financial aid
all day.
Yeah, I mean,
the first thing you tell them, fill out your FAFSA.
Yes, because now I can't give you money if you're a full qualifier.
I can get him to a few thousand.
Yes.
Yes. And the other issue was we were fighting is, and a lot of schools are doing it now, just saw somebody has extended their area. They were extending into neighboring states and giving those kids in-state tuition and fees, which is a whole lot less than what out-of-state tuition fees.
Exactly.
So a lot of schools were more proactive at that, or the ones that were the border state schools, Shepherd and all them, they could go all over into D.C. and all over to Maryland and all there and offer in-state student fees.
Yeah.
It was a long time before we kind of got over maybe into Ashland or just a little bit outside of West Virginia to offer that. But that's huge.
Because the recruiting area that you want to get it to is up into the D.C., Maryland, and all that kind of stuff.
And so we had a disadvantage there because they were offering them in-state tuition, and it was doubled for out-of-state if we tried to get that same kid.
Right.
And they probably had 25 equivalencies at the time, and you had 11.
Right.
Mine went up to about 12 or 13 because I ended up having some players there at the end that I had to guess, like, look, can I get a little bump here? So mine went up about 12 or 13. And then when we start catching them on the field, and we had the back-to-back 7 and 3s, and those guys had 20, 25 full rides.
Right.
They had presidents come in and ADs come in. They jumped. By the time we called them, they jumped to 36, which is the maximum in Division II. And here we are, my last 3 years, still with 12. And they cut everybody's budget 5 or 7% there in my last 3 years. And so, I mean,
They just send you back. They just send you back.
And like I said, and it's no excuse. We did with what we had, and we recruited with what we had, facility-wise and budget-wise and everything else, and just did the best, that we could do. And we had some good ball players, guys.
Yeah.
We had some really good ball players, but you got to have, for football, you got to have that and some.
And if you're trying to get, and I've made the case, publicly talking to folks about my tenure at West Virginia State, and I try to tell people, don't assume that these kids can't play at the next level either. You know what I'm saying? Like, the problem with that is to get a scout to come there, and not saying that they won't pop their head in there, but when they pop their head in there, they're not expecting to really see anything. Because, you go back to Arnett Austin, right?
Yeah.
As we call him, Snooty. I mean, Snooty and Hump, they could play. I know guys that they were better than that I played in the league with.
Right, gotcha.
But those opportunities just don't come. But I want to swing in this the last bit of the show here. I want to talk a little bit more about you and the accomplishments in which you feel that you've had, and because to me, when it comes down to the Hall of Fame, and you and I have had some conversation about all the kind of stuff that's happened, kind of behind the scenes. I'm the guy who's not like, I don't want something that I don't think I deserve. You know what I'm saying? And so to me, like, when I think about you and I think about you in West Virginia State, I don't think that there would be anybody currently there in athletics, okay? And I don't know everybody that's in athletics.
Right.
That would be due Hall of Fame recognition more than you. For the simple fact, you Coach, it's like, and again, when I opened the show up, I'm talking about, like, I don't know who doesn't know Coach Monroe, right? If you've ever been down the state, you probably had to have heard his name. The work that you put in, whether as an assistant, as a volunteer, as a paid coach, as a head coach, and again, I think we got, maybe 4 or 5 wins, maybe the top when I was there as the head coach, maybe.
I think we're 5 and 5.
Yeah, we're 5 and 5, which was exciting.
Yeah.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
But now to have two seasons of winning record and be nationally ranked for West Virginia State, how I don't even know, like, how you wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying? And I want to point those things out because, sometimes, when people think about the Hall of Fame, they try to figure out, sometimes you want to try to figure out, like, well, what did he do? How did he do that?
And you can measure wins, losses, longevity, all that. But I think another huge piece of that formula for a coach is not the trophies that he won to go in the trophy case, but the trophies that he sent out in the community to raise kids and be good husbands and productive adults. And your record and our record as that is we brought kids in that were some disadvantaged kids. Kids had challenges, and some that people had written off and said that they were not college students.
Exactly.
And they were academically, and they were not college students any other way. And we fought with your leadership and guys. I brought some guys in that I knew that had some issues, and I said, look, be straight up with him. We don't need no surprises when we get up there and we're trying to fight for you guys. And you took them in, and some of them had been put out and whatever, and they came in, they did everything they had to do, and they worked, and they're so grateful now, and they're such well-adjusted, productive adults, man. And I tell people, I didn't win a championship down at State. I don't have any trophies in the trophy case, but I got a whole lot of them sitting out here in the audience. And those are my trophies.
And homecoming shows that.
Yes.
Because the first call I got was from Charles Smith.
Right. Defensive player of the year, conference defensive player of the year.
That was not where the administration did not want him to play.
No.
And we fought tooth and nail to get him there.
Yep.
He graduates and then in turn has a gold jacket.
Yes.
Like,
I mean, that's worth that.
That's what coaches are supposed to be.
That's what coaches are all about. Because, and I'm going to use University of Georgia, and there might be some dog fans out there. University of Georgia's been in the top 2 or 3 of the last round. But how many arrests and how many wrecks and deaths and all these different situations they're having.
Yeah.
And I know Coach can't control all that stuff, but, you know, it's a character-building thing. I would rather build character and have guys do the right thing than to have 3 championships and guys all over the place.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. Okay, so my judgment of sports, I don't care what level we're talking about, you know, but but starting youth, middle, high school, and even maybe college, right? Are we worried about that? Are we focused on the challenge of building men, women over winning, or my success or my sustainability to be the head coach or be on the cash staff or coaching staff? I got to get W's.
W's. By any means necessary. Michigan. You know, they're accused of videotaping signals and all that, but you don't suspend. You suspend the coach for 2 preseason games.
Like, okay.
And they go on to win a national championship, which I hope at some point the investigation turns and they take it away from them. But you never should even put them in that. They shouldn't have been. And when it came down to the Final Four and they knocked Florida State out, that should have been a question and they should have been out. Well, but they don't care. They don't care about that, Carl. That's not the focus of what they're looking for.
The interesting piece to that story to me, Coach, is like, okay, so that situation is okay. We're sitting in the room. We're trying to figure out what should we do with this. Okay, let's slap him on the wrist and let's go on.
Yeah.
And so everything is still good.
Yeah.
No, it ain't good.
And you set a terrible example because everybody else gonna try it. That's all.
If that's all he's gonna get, because that's all you can give me.
That's all he's gonna get. You know, and I said in my speech, you know, I thank my mom and my dad. I said for beating discipline and fortitude, and I said, but instilling discipline in us. But everybody thinks you got a choice of right or wrong. There ain't no choice of right or wrong. There ain't but one choice. It's right. Once you figure that out,
and the part of what is right is what the coaches is saying, not what you say at home to your kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things, and I'm curious about what you say here, is coaching cannot be at home. It like you can't bring your rules and regulations to the field for your kid.
No.
I have a structure that fits me and fits my team because I'm trying to make them something.
Coach, we didn't understand when our parents made us come home and everybody else's kid was out there and we had to be in a certain time and we couldn't go here or we couldn't go there. And it worked. So a lot of the things that principals you said and I said, and you can't wear earrings, some coaches still do it. You can't do this. You got to take your hat off in the building. You got to do it's structure. Your life will be a lot easier if you get used to following instructions and following rules and be structured.
And the interesting thing, because you may be the same as me, I passed that rule, the hat rule, no hats in the building, just for the fact of discipline, just to make that you do. Because anybody who knows me,
that's all it is. No, you're a hat guy.
I'm a hat guy everywhere.
And you killed me too on that hat rule. I was like, man, no hats. Is that just for the players? No.
You know what I'm saying? But I knew, I just wanted. And what it was for was to test them, because it was not a hard rule.
No, not at all.
It's just will you listen? Not
at all.
So we walk into the athletic building, and gym was included. So see a basketball game, you see one of the players in there with his hat on. You go down and see him and say, now you know you're running.
Right. And the other guys should be checking him.
Be telling him, take your hat off.
Now you're going to find out who your leaders are.
Yep.
And the guy's just going to step out and say, look, man, take your hat off, bro. You're going to get us all in trouble. We're all going to have to run.
I thought it was worth my sacrifice.
Simple.
Just to put something out there to see who would follow it and who would
fight it. Yeah.
Because if you're fighting, is it really that big of a deal?
If you fight me with this, you're going to fight me with everything down the road.
There's no question. Because it's going to be something harder than that.
No question. No question.
So, real quick, Coach. So, tell me, if you can, the feeling in which you have knowing now, and even during the Hall of Fame induction, sitting there hearing people talk, putting the jacket on, hanging it up when you got home, knowing now that's your attire for every homecoming, every major event. You know, likely you gotta bring that jacket and wear it. Tell me what that feels like to you, man.
It actually hit me in real time. Before, I always said every day I showed up down there was never about me.
Right.
And that's how we got through it.
Yeah.
It was, we didn't have time for it to be about us because we had a whole lot to do when we got there. And our office was in the caddy house for a long time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then after you left, I took over your office in the caddy house. And not one time, Carl, did I walk in that door. We went in there every day, walked by all the pictures. Not one time did I walk in that door and say, wonder where they going to put my picture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just walked upstairs and you went and you did.
Walk right past.
Never, ever dreamed that Hall of Fame. This is for players. This is for guys winning championships because that's what they want.
Right.
And so then after the years went on and you got 20 in, you got 25, you got 26 in, then the kids start asking, Coach, you in the Hall of Fame? No, I'm not in the Hall of Fame. I said, and I told them, I said, this is my Hall of Fame. All you guys gathered around me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, popping bottles and all that other stuff they was trying to do. And I was like, but I said, this is my Hall of Fame, guys. This is my jack. You guys coming back, talking about what we meant to you, and just to see how successful you guys are and well-adjusted, citizens, haven't been in any trouble. And some of them coaching and passing that on. That's the biggest tribute to a coach that, his pupils go out and coach.
Right.
So it kind of hit me in real time when I was standing there, and I got there, and I got kind of choked up. And Ray Hardy, who's a nut anyway, we're on a text deal with him. As soon as they announced it, Ray said, "I'm taking bets you're going to cry." So I had this thing in me where I got to try to hide my tear, but I kind of got choked up when I got up there, and I finally realized that, this is a big moment in my life. I said, and I told him, I said, this is one of the biggest moments in my life, and I, thanked him from the bottom of my heart. And a lot of times when you don't have those winners, we put in a lot of hours, man. We put in a lot of time, a lot of hours away from our families and all that. And guys, you don't always see the fruits of your labor. And sometimes that gets frustrating. And in this profession, you asked me if I'd ever coach again, and I looked at you like, what, you called me? In this profession, it's the worst profession in the world, because every week, half of the people in your profession fail. If winning and losing is the barometer of success and failure. So half of the people, now we both can sell insurance, you sell them out, and I sell them out, and you sell twice what but I ain't failed.
Yeah, because you sold something.
But if winning and losing is success or failure, half the people in your profession fail every week. And that's why the turnover, you look at the pro turnover every week, every year, you look at the college turnover every year, it is not the greatest of professions to be in.
So hearing that, let me say this to anybody who's going to listen to this. When you start critiquing the coach, when you start critiquing even the player, somebody else's kid who didn't do this, the coach should have known that. He should have called this. It's bigger. Coaching is bigger than winning and losing.
Way bigger.
It's way bigger. And trust me, when you're the coach, assistant, head, and you're putting in all this time that you can't even imagine the amount of hours that you put in to do that. And the last thing you want is to lose a game on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday or Sunday. That's not what you want. But even your selfishness of wanting to win, I don't know if I know anybody personally who's a coach, been a coach, who did not focus its overall everything on the kid itself.
Right.
And until you can look at the benefit of the coach to your kid personally, privately, if you're stuck in winning and losing, you're missing what sports really is.
And it's sad because it starts at the little league level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where they shouldn't sometimes even have a score in some of the D and C's. We're teaching competition, we're teaching rules, we're teaching fundamentals, but we're so caught up on winning and losing, we lose sight of everything.
Yeah, and you're right. Youth football is really where we're learning this bad behavior.
Yes.
Coming, and it just follows you. You just get worse as you get up through
it's just society. The society is just winning and losing, and again, to talk about the Hall of Fame again. Finally, you get a little feeling that of appreciation and a little bit of the fruits of your labor.
Yes.
26 years and only two coaches. You and I were there. They got 8 or 9 full-time coaches there, Carl. Can you imagine?
Me and you, first thing in the morning.
It's just 2 of us, guys. It's
all
just
day.
2 of us. And so you're there all day. You got 6 a.m. workouts. You got study hall. You got study hall in the evening for the ones that morning class. You got weightlifting. And it's just the 2 of us.
And we wasn't splitting it. We was doing it together.
It's just the two of us.
Yeah,
And we put a lot, so then you fight hard on Saturday, and you're like, man, so now I got to come in earlier and break this film down and see how we get better next week. And you don't always see the fruits of your labor, but it did not deter us.
No.
It did not deter us. It just made us work harder. And so standing up there and finally putting that jacket on, it just gave me a feeling of completion and adoration that they actually appreciated those fruits of, and finally got some of the fruits of your labor. So that was the rewarding part of it.
All right, well, again, I'd like to thank Frank Walker, I can't help it. It's how I know him. Frank Walker Law, real talk, real experience, real results. For more information, you can go to frankwalkerlaw.com. Coach Monroe, I appreciate your time, man. And again,
anytime, my brother. Thank you for the opportunity. You could have hired anybody as your defensive coordinator. And for the little time you had seen me in the office and doing work, and I appreciate it. There's definitely no me without you, brother.
Well, hey, likewise, man. And like I said, I think you earned it, deserve it, and enjoy it.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back again next week, and we'll get to you again. Talk to you later.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. frankwalkerlaw.com. Comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
If you fall, dust it off and get back up on your feet. Anything could be a win, yup, even defeat. They say sugar bad for you, wise victory sweet. Couldn't play with big kids, I had to sit in the street and watch from a distance, but over time I grew. If I put in the work, in no time I'm due. Everything that I worked and prayed, I'm okay. If you ask me, how did I do it, I'm gon' say, you gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work. 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 You gotta work.